You're about to meet one of the newer and most amazing additions to our EXP community. This gentleman and his team, 2,600 transactions over this year is what they're pacing to, 2,600. And the beauty of an environment like this is we couldn't be more excited that when you can sell 8 figures worth of GCI and hundreds of homes, pushing on 1,000 homes, and you get just wiped out by someone like this. So this environment keeps getting bigger and more amazing.
We get excited when we're in the rooms with big thinkers.
Love it.
You're going to hear his story about how he built this $3 billion also investment fund, which we'll touch base on really quick on. But what you don't know is the story. The story. I stole your part, but the story behind it. What you don't know, and he's going to go into it. Parents, 16 years old, had him and moved over 35 times before the age of 15, overcame so much adversity, but flew in here. I think we even sat on a little private jet.
We're really excited to bring him out. He's dominating in the space of not just real estate sales, but investment, debt, raising equity, and just a wealth of knowledge. Also one of the most just humble people that you'll run across all 3 days here. Bringing you Mr. Don Wenner.
Well, thank you for that great introduction. A little show of hands. Before that introduction, who knew who I was before I came out on stage here? Anybody know who I was beforehand? Kind of see here. Pleasure to be here. As Dan just said, recent addition to this EXP community, and couldn't be more excited to come here and talk about building an elite legacy. And when I heard that the theme of this event was build legacy, I could not come and talk about this, which will make better sense in a second. So a little bit about myself. I got into real estate as a real estate agent about 16, almost 17 years ago in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I'm the father of 3 young boys, 10, 9, and 11 months old, and my wife Carla there, who's somewhere in the audience here. Since I got started in real estate, we've done over 28,000 real estate transactions, including over 2,600 last year alone. We've been a top 15 real estate team in America for the past 7 years by the Real Trends reports. In addition to running a real estate sales team, we've been able to build a family of businesses, a part of DLP Capital. Today we own just under 20,000 residential housing units, apartments, and homes. We're currently developing about 10,000 brand new housing units, single family, multifamily, build to rent, ground up multifamily. And do all the vertically integrated businesses that go along with that. We have over $3.4 billion in assets today under management through about 2,200 families who choose to invest with us. Been married to my wonderful wife now going on 12 years. We live in St. Augustine, Florida. Yes, beautiful place if you haven't been there, and I spend a lot of the summers in Asheville, North Carolina, but still run our real estate team out of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And I'm also the author of a book called Building an Elite Organization, which I published almost 2 years ago now, which was a #1 best-selling book on Amazon, top 5 in Wall Street Journal as well. And it's a book on what you've heard Dan talk a bit about, as well as Bill, about action, about implementation, about execution, about going out there and actually putting things into motion. We run a lot of events as well. And our events are very much focused around how do we leave these events with the ability to take action, to put something into play that's going to grow your business. We've scaled our organization by 60% or more every single year for 16 years. We've been an Inc. 5000 fastest growing company in America for 10 straight years. We haven't had a single 5-year period where we haven't 10x'd our revenue. Not a single time, any 5 years you pick, that we haven't 10x'd our business. The next book that I'm actually just finishing right now, that's going to come out in a couple months, is called Building an Elite Career, which is written to those maybe not who aren't the CEO or running a large business, but are looking to build an incredible career, an incredible life, and that's coming out in Q4. And then the next book that I'm just starting on is the name of my speech here, Building an Elite Legacy. So I said when I heard this event theme was Building a Legacy, I said I could not come and talk on that topic, on building a legacy, and this book will be coming out next year. I believe today I can soundly say I'm an expert in building elite organizations. I'm an expert in scaling companies. Not only have we focused and scaled our business, I just said, we help actually a number of people in this room scale their businesses. We have a community of real estate operators, sponsors, brokers that we're helping scale their business. But maybe one of the things that's unique about our approach, and Bill kind of wrapped up with this in his last slides, is I'm an expert in building elite organizations while living an extraordinary life and building a legacy. And you can do those things at the same time. I today say confidently I'm living an extraordinary life, a life I could not have imagined when I got started in real estate 16 years ago. I'm 37 years old. I have a deep relationship with the Lord. I have an incredible family, 3 great boys. Thank you. Yes. A great loving wife. I flew here on my plane. Lead a company that I get to do exactly what I like to do every single day. And I've created generational wealth for my kids and their kids at this point in my life. So I feel confident I'm incredibly blessed and living an extraordinary life. But my life began, like probably many of yours, with very humble beginnings. My parents had me at 16 years old. I grew up with my mom running a home daycare out of our home. So I'm the oldest of 5, and there would be 5 or 6 other kids in our home at all times, younger kids in our house. And my dad was a prison guard. And that's what the environment I grew up in. Nobody in my family had been to college. Nobody in my family had ever started a business. So grew up very, very humble beginnings. I lived in over 35 different homes by the time I left my parents' home at 17 years old. So went through a lot of, as many of us have, right? A lot of tough, humble beginnings. Moved out of my parents' home at 17 years old because I thought I knew better and I could do it on my own, and set out very determined to do so. And that led to me getting into real estate here completely by mistake, actually by a fellow EXP agent, Nathan Robinson, who convinced me to enter real estate at about 20 years old. And I was a college student at the time, and my real estate career started off very similarly to my life, with very humble beginnings. So I'm going to sort of date myself here a little bit, but my first client here, Cynthia, found me through a Bandit newspaper ad. Who here has ever run newspaper ads, right? Yes, I know Brent has, and a few of us have. Used to run these Bandit ads, 100% financing, no money down, call for a free report type of ads. And Cynthia was one of the first people to ever respond to one of my first marketing ads. And I had a bunch of phone calls with Cynthia trying to get her to go out and look at homes. And Cynthia had lived in her apartment for over 30 years, the same apartment, and her landlord was doubling her rent. And so she was deciding to go out and look at a home. And she made it clear to me before I had ever met her that it needed to be a single-story home. Had to be a ranch home. She couldn't do steps. I said, okay, no problem. So I met her out, and we started looking at homes. And the very first home I took her to was a single-story ranch home. But that home had one single step to get into the home, and she could not do that single step. Cynthia happened to be about 500 pounds and not in the best of shape, and couldn't even get up one single step. So we walked up to the house, the front steps, and she couldn't get in the home. So I said, uh-oh, we got a problem. So we start walking back to her car, and there's a little curb like you see in that picture. That's not the home, but she came up to that little curb and fell. So she fell on the ground. This is the first time I've ever taken a client out to look at homes. So she fell, and I could not get her up. So I had to call 911. The ambulance came, fire department came, police came, and it took multiple people to get Cynthia up, get her into her car. She was quite embarrassed, didn't want to go back out and look at homes anymore. I continued to follow up. Finally, I convinced her to go back out and look at homes. Before I took her back out, I built a ramp for her to be able to get into homes. So I had to build her a ramp to be able to get into a home. Thank you. And this is that home. So I took her into this home. She was able to now get into that home. She was very excited, very happy. We went under contract to buy this home for $107,000. And she was very happy, went through the whole process, of course, inspections, mortgage, etc. Finally, we get to closing. And this is in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and it's a winter day. It's February of 2007, and she can't get her car out of the driveway. It's icy, and I drove an SUV, so I couldn't even pick her up. So I had to borrow somebody else's car, come pick her up, get her in my car, take her to closing. And then when I took her back home, I asked her, who's helping her move? And it turned out it was me. So I then moved Cynthia into her new home, and after all that was done, my check, after paying my fees to Keller Williams Real Estate and so forth, I made $570. And that was the first sale, right? So I'm sure we've all had stories like that. And since then, I've had 28,000 more sales and have had incredible growth and success. But it all started, and I was hooked, even though it was a really tough deal and didn't really make much money. Cynthia still calls me every couple years, still lives in this home, still really excited and appreciative. And I was hooked on this business of solving issues and helping people with housing. I've been able to achieve a lot since then, but I've achieved so much, I truly believe, not because I'm so great, but because he is so great. And we all live here, thank you. We all live in the most amazing country on earth. We live in a phenomenal time, a great market, and we have so many blessings that we all take for granted at times. So that leads me into my talk here of how do you build an elite legacy? How do you build a legacy? The theme of this event, how do you build a legacy? To answer that, I'm going to start off with a great quote often attributed to Mark Twain. The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. Right? So legacy is about why. What are you called to do? Why are you on this earth? So in order to answer that question, we've developed a pretty cool process and tool that I've been using in my life, and we've been helping many others use, a tool we call the personal compass. And I'll talk more about that. We're going to make that tool available to anybody who wants it as well. And I've been able to get really clear about what my mission is. So my mission is to serve the Lord, leveraging DLP as my platform, utilizing my skills as a CEO and a leader to make a positive impact on 4 major crises in this world: housing, jobs, legacy, and happiness. And I've gotten really clear about what I want to be remembered for, and which is, to me, a big part of how you answer what you want your legacy to be, right? Living for your eulogy, not for your resume. And what I want to be remembered for is, first and foremost, as much as I appreciate you guys listening to me here and being in front of a large group like this, I want to be most famous in my own home, right? In my own kids' eyes. I want to be remembered as a great servant leader that made a significant impact on these 4 major crises. I've been able to leverage my organization, my platform, my relationships, my influence to do this, which is something we all have the ability to do. Leverage our unique skills, our superpowers, our ability, our platform to make a difference. My organization is called DLP Capital, and it gives me an incredible platform, such as being on a stage like this here today, to influence people and make an impact. I've designed my organization, my flywheel, which is a Jim Collins term if you're not familiar with it. I've designed my organization around making an impact on these 4 really big crises. So our organization today revolves around, everything starts for us with capital being invested into private REIT funds that we manage. I talked a little bit about earlier. And that allows us to help families. Generally speaking, our investors are faith-centered wealth creators. We help them avoid what we call the legacy crisis, which is the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. Anybody ever heard of that before? Which is that if you're a first-generation wealth creator, the odds are that your children or their children are going to lose your wealth. That happens almost every time that the second or third generation loses the wealth of the first generation. And people often think that must be a estate planning issue. They didn't have the right will or the right structure. They lost it to taxes, or they made bad investments. But it's actually typically a parenting issue, not an investment issue. There wasn't the right communication, education, values instilled within the family. So that's where we start. Then what we do as an organization is we invest in housing. We help people buy and sell housing, but then we invest in housing. We build new housing. We develop brand new communities. We invest and improve existing communities. We lend money to other people who do the same. We partner with other people who do the same. But at the end of the day, what we do is we invest in housing. And that allows us to impact this incredible crisis we face today in America of the affordability of housing. Not just for sale housing that most of you are most focused on, but rental housing in America today over half of Americans today are spending more than they can really afford on rent today, and that problem is getting bigger by the day. And then our secret sauce to what we do in our organization is we build elite organizations. In our company and those that we partner with and lend to, we help them build elite organizations and create jobs. A lot of people are afraid of technology and all the change that's happening and the fact that a lot of jobs are going to be replaced by automation and change, but it's actually a really exciting thing. But the people who are going to create jobs are us. Entrepreneurial small businesses are who create jobs. But scaling a business, creating jobs, is a hard thing to do. And that's what we focus on. And then if we do those three things well, we create prosperity for our investors, for our operators, our residents, and for our team members who work at the LP. So again, 4 areas of impact we're focused on, areas that we feel called to make a difference, that I've been called to focus on, are the affordability housing crisis, the jobs crisis, what we call the legacy crisis, and the happiness crisis, which is maybe the biggest of all. And I'm going to come back to that. Another great quote here from the Bible: to whom much is given, much will be required. To whom much is given, much will be required. We've all been given so much. Each of us are successful in our own right. But I ask you, are you using your gifts, your abilities, your blessings to your full ability? I believe when we go to heaven, there's going to be a question asked to us when we get to those pearly gates. What did you do with the gifts that were given to you? And in my pursuit of being able to answer that question affirmatively, that I did everything I could to the best of my ability with my gifts, I've been on a journey for a lot of years to determine, what does it take to be successful? What does it take to live a life of significance? What does it take to build an incredible life and fulfill my calling? I've been trying to figure out, what is the formula for a life of fulfillment and success? And I heard a great quote recently that said, success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. Think about that. Success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. Those are two different things. So living a life not just of success, but of significance and happiness is what I've set out on a journey to figure out, what is that formula? Not only so that I can make sure to live it, so I can teach it to my children, to my team members, and all of those who are part of our community. And I've developed what I call the 5 keys to a life of significance and happiness, that if applied to the areas of your life will allow you to build an elite legacy. The great thing about these 5 keys I'm going to walk through is that they're choices. Or maybe a better word for it is they're commitments. These are commitments you could choose to make in your life and achieve a life of success and significance, achieve all your goals, live out your calling. But it's a choice, and they're not easy choices for many of us. The first one is intentionality. People today feel that they've never been busier, right? We don't have enough time. We've never had more priorities. Everybody feels that their biggest challenge is time management. Anybody surprised by that statement? Right? Anybody not feel that they don't have enough time to do everything they want to do? That's what everybody feels. That's the number one question people ask me is, any recommendations for time management? Yet, the average American spends 3.1 hours per day on television, watching television, and over 2 hours a day on social media. 5 hours a day watching television or on social media, yet we all feel we don't have enough time. Tim Ferriss has a great quote that says, being busy is akin to sloppiness with your time. It's another form of laziness. Many of us are really, really, really busy, but are we intentional with what we're doing and why we're doing it? So I'm going to tell a little story. So I showed a picture earlier of my family, and the baby in the picture, his name is Jake. We adopted Jake at 9 days old this past September. And prior to adopting Jake, my wife was taking care of our 2 older children, and we cyber school our kids so that we can live out some of the goals and some of the lifestyle you're going to see in a moment. So my wife's been full-time school teacher, takes care of our home, puts up with all the crazy travel and things that I bring forward, and handles our household. And if I would have came to my wife a year or 2 ago and said, honey, I've got something I need you to do. I need you to spend another 2 or 3 or 4 hours a day doing this for me, or taking this responsibility on. She would have said to me, Don, do you not see how busy I am? There's no way I could take on another significant responsibility. I don't have time. I'm so busy taking care of our 2 children, taking care of the house, taking care of you. Yet when we got the phone call that Jacob was 9 days old and we could go pick him up and adopt him, somehow we've been able to have time. And I assure you, he takes more than 2 or 3 or 4 hours of her time every day. Yet my other children's education has only continued to improve. The house is still clean. We're all still being well taken care of. Yet she's been able to make time for Jacob. And that's the test of attention. We all feel we don't have enough time. But we do. We have to reprioritize and be very intentional. She's had to be more focused on how she spends her time to make time for a newborn baby. Some of you might remember how much work that is. So intentional living is not only being intentional about what you do, but what you don't do. It's about being intentional about who you do life with and who you don't do life with. This is my favorite quote. My leaders in my organization are tired of hearing me say this, I'm sure, because I've been saying this pretty much every day for the past couple years. Most people have the will to win, but few have the will to prepare to win. Somebody like yourself who flies out to this conference, shows up and sits here, is learning, taking notes, taking pictures. You have the will to win, right? You want to be successful. But you have the will to prepare to win, the hard work of planning, of thinking, of getting intentional about what you want out of life. That's the hard stuff. Answering emails, showing homes, taking phone calls, that's the easy stuff. Right? Another great quote is, what's important is rarely urgent. What's urgent is rarely important. It feels important at that moment. So that's the first key, intentionality. The second is purpose. Again, I remind you of that quote I mentioned earlier. The 2 most important days of your life, the day you were born and the day you find out why. Why? That's your purpose. We've developed this tool we call the personal compass to help us live out our purpose, to help us live out what we're called to do. I believe that living a life of success and significance and living my legacy is about achieving my goals in all the areas of my life. And I call it the 8 F's of life: family, friends, freedom, fun, fulfillment, fitness, and finance. Those are the 8 F's of life. And people often think about work-life balance. Right? Bill talked earlier about having a business that supports the story you want to live. That's what I think about with work-life integration. I believe life is a circle. The great Jeff Bezos came out recently and said he thinks work-life balance is a debilitating term. It's about integration. So I believe these are the 8 areas of life as we categorize it, and real success is achieving my goals in all of these areas at the same time. So we've developed in our family, most of you probably have core values in your organization. My core values in my organization are on the right side of that screen. On the left side are my family's core values. We've gotten very clear what our values are in our family, which as CEO of the organization, you might see some of those values in my company match my family's core values, as you might imagine, but they're a different set of values and have different meaning in our family. We've gotten very clear about what's the mission for our family. So you can see my mission there, starting off with we honor the Lord through our faith and service. I've gotten clear about what my personal mission is, as I talked about earlier. I've gotten clear about what I want to be remembered for. So I've gotten clear on what I want to accomplish in life, why I'm here, what I'm called to do, what's important to me, what's important to our family. And that brings me to the third of the 5 keys, which is goals. Andrew Carnegie said, if you want to be happy, set goals that command your thoughts, liberate your energy, and inspire your hopes. Great quote. One of the things often we do when we set goals is we don't first assess where we are today in life. And I actually learned this concept of a life assessment from Darren Hardy's great book, The Compound Effect, 15 years ago, and adapted his tool that he introduces in that book. And we've developed this life assessment tool where we assess our life across these 8 F's of life. So how we're doing on the family front, friends, freedom, fun, faith, fulfillment. And we assess where we are today. So I can first take kind of inventory of how am I doing today? And then we go about setting goals. And a couple of the big areas of goals that I focus on, this is probably my favorite part of goal setting that I do in my life, what I call my perfect life numbers. So if Brent and I were sitting on a park bench in 30 years, and Brent said to me, Don, how did the last 30 years of your life go? This is what I would be able to, if these things happen, I'd be able to say, Brent, the last 30 years of my life were perfect. So what are the things that need to happen in your life that you'd be able to sit on a park bench with me in 30 years, and if I asked you the question, how did the last 30 years of your life go, you'd be able to say, It went perfect. Didn't mean you didn't have tough times and tribulations and loss, but what are the things that would happen that you'd be able to say the last 30 years of your life went perfect? We as a family have a big goal for our family right now, our big, hairy, audacious goal. Ours as a family is to create 1,000 extraordinary days in 100 different places. And we're going to do that by the time my oldest graduates high school, which we have about 8 years to do that. So we, as I mentioned earlier, cyber school our kids, and we travel around the world. And at the end of each day that we do together as a family, we have to all agree and all vote that this was an extraordinary day. It's a really cool exercise to do and a really cool process of making sure we're really enjoying and doing life together. I have goals around what I want to achieve in 5 years, what I want to achieve in 20 years, and then I even have goals of what I want to achieve in 100 years. And some of you might think, I don't plan to be here in 100 years. I do plan to be here in 100 years. I plan to live to 150, God willing, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But even if you're not going to be here, what do you want your legacy to be? What will have happened in your family 100 years from now? Which brings me to our fourth key, which is grit. The great Angela Duckworth, who wrote the book Grit, says, "Grit is passion and perseverance towards your long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future day in and day out, not just for a week, not just for a month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint." So what is grit? I believe if you just want to be successful, if you're not worried about happiness or fulfillment, that all you want to do is focus on success, grit is all it takes. If you put forth a high level of grit, you can be incredibly successful. Grit is what separates the most successful people from everybody else in the world. Another way to think about grit is talent times effort equals skill. Skill times effort equals results or achievements, so effort counts twice. But effort towards long-term goals, staying focused on being great, the pursuit of greatness at your craft, at what you do, incremental growth and improvement. That's what grit does. And lastly is the growth mindset. This is the fifth key. This is the one I spend the most of my time focused on in my family, with my children, and is a pretty amazing concept that maybe not everybody's familiar with. There's a great book called Mindset by Carol Dweck, and this is her quote about growth mindset. A growth mindset is the belief that you can cultivate and improve upon your abilities through practice and effort, as opposed to having a fixed mindset, which dictates a person's ability is largely predetermined or unchangeable. A fixed mindset makes you fearful, but you can grow. So I'll give a quick example. Let's say you were going out to list a home, and there were multiple agents trying to list this same home. If you had a fixed mindset, and let's say the other agent had a growth mindset, and you both went out to list this home, you both gave your best presentations, and neither of you got the listing. Seller decided to list with somebody else. A person with a fixed mindset would think, oh, it's not fair, I'm just not good at listing homes, the market's so tough, people just don't listen, I never got a fair shake at this, I bet you the other agent listed it for a really low commission or told them they'd get them way more than's possible. They'd have some excuse, some reason that's out of their control, nothing they can do, can't handle it. The person with a growth mindset would want to follow up with the seller and say, why did you not list with me? Who did you list with? Why did you choose them? So that next time they can do better. Because we can improve anything if we're willing to put forth the effort to learn and do the work necessary. So again, the recap, the 5 keys to life of success, significance, and purpose, if applied across all the areas of your life, will lead to an incredible legacy or intentionality, purpose, goals, grit, and a growth mindset. We apply these across all the areas of our life. I apply these keys, these choices across each area of my life, and use this tool we call the personal compass, which every tool I went through, the life assessment, the personal compass, if you go to dlpcapital.com, which is our website, and click the button on the top that says Elite, you'll be able to you'll find the free resources tab, and you can get the life assessment, our personal compass, trainings on these tools, a copy of my book, an elite personal journal we created as well, and have access to amazing tools that can help you build an elite legacy. As I said a moment ago, I have goals all the way out to 100 years from now. I need to live a long time to achieve all I want, and God willing, I plan to live to 150. Some of you, who's read Tony's new book, Life Force? Pretty awesome book, right? My guest will probably talk about it tomorrow. And it's an incredible book. I think the best book ever written on longevity and health and wellness. And so we're hosting a big event in Puerto Rico in November where we're having Bob Harari, who's actually the co-author of the book, many of the doctors and scientists featured in that book, all come out to lead an incredible event focused on longevity, focused on health and wellness. And I believe after people come to that event, they're also going to believe they can live to 150, and we'll stop laughing when I tell them I'm going to live to 150. So I encourage you, if that resonates with you, maybe after Tony's talk tomorrow it will, come out and join us in Puerto Rico in November. If you go to our website, click events, you'll see all the information about that. So to wrap up my talk here, I want to tell you about one of my favorite songs. So Matthew West, who's a famous Christian singer, has a song called Do Something. And if you had never heard the song before, how the song starts off is Matthew is in a conversation with God. And he says to God, you know, people are dying, people are suffering, people are getting cancer, and there's hunger out there, and there's all these problems going on in the world. And he's very upset about all these problems going on. He says to God, God, why don't you do something? And God's response to him is, I did. I created you. Right? And it's an amazing way to think about all the things that we see, all the problems we see out there, right? God said, I did. I created you. So I ask you, when you think about what you're called to do, what you're here on this earth to do, your why, I encourage you to ask yourself, if not you, then who? Who's going to answer that calling? If not you, then who? And if not now, then when? So go out, make a difference, make an impact, answer your calling, build a legacy. Appreciate all your time here this afternoon. Thank you, everybody.